All right, welcome back to Tax Sense. You know we like to go deep on those tricky tax topics. And today we're tackling two big changes coming to Minnesota in 2024. We're talking about those sweet benefits for renters and families with kids. And to break it all down, we've got Olenka from Igor Dykne, those tax wizards.
Happy to be here. You know taxes can be a headache, but understanding those changes, well, it can put some cash back in your pocket.
You got that right. So first up, let's hit the renter's credit. It got a little bit of a makeover for 2024.
Yeah, it did. It's not a new credit, but how you claim it, it's totally different now. See, before you had to file a separate form for that renter's property tax refund, but now it's all streamlined right on your Minnesota income tax return.
So that means no more waiting around for a separate refund check later on. That's got to be music to a lot of renters' ears.
Definitely.
But hold on, what about the income limit to qualify? Is that still the same?
It is. The household income limit stays put at $75,390.
Okay, so say someone's making like $80,000, they're automatically out of luck then.
Well, not so fast. Remember, we're talking household income here. Plus, there are some subtractions you got to factor in. Things like age, disability, or dependence. Those can really change the math in your favor.
Okay, so knowing the nitty-gritty really pays off. What about the credit itself, though? How much can people actually get back?
Buckle up. The maximum credit is a cool $2,640.
Whoa, that's not pocket change. But I remember back in the day, there was a lot of buzz about that certificate of rent paid, CRP. Is that still a big deal?
Oh, absolutely. It's super important. Landlords have to give you that form. By January 31st, it shows how much rent you paid. No CRP, no claiming the credit.
Yikes. So renters really got to be on top of that. Make sure they get it from their landlord. What if a landlord's slacking, though? Or the CRP has some mistakes on it?
First things first, try talking to your landlord. But if you still don't have a correct CRP by February 1st, you've got a backup plan. You can request a Rent Paid Affidavit. We call it the RPA from the Minnesota Department of Revenue.
So the RPA is like a safety net.
Yeah.
What do people need to know about getting one of those?
All right, so with the RPA, you'll need some info. Things like your landlord's details, the specifics of your rental agreement, that kind of stuff. You can request it online or by phone. And the Department of Revenue website has all the nitty-gritty on that.
Sounds good. We'll make sure to link that in the show notes so you've got your CRP or your RPA all set. But there's another big change this year that could put some cash in your pocket right now. We're talking about advance payments of the child tax credit. Now, I know in the past you got the whole credit when you filed your taxes. What's different now?
Well, now you've got a choice. You can still wait and get the full credit on your return. Or you can choose to receive advance payments, spread out over 3 payments in July, September, and November.
It's kind of like a mini stimulus throughout the year. That sounds pretty tempting. How much are we talking about these payments?
It really depends on your income and how many qualifying children you have. But think of it as a portion of your 2025 child tax credit, delivered ahead of time. You'll still get the rest when you file your return.
Interesting. So it wouldn't make filing more complicated later on?
Not at all. The Department of Revenue will send you a statement. It'll show exactly how much you got in advance payments, so you'll have all the info you need when you file.
Okay, that makes sense. Are there any downsides to picking these advance payments, though?
There's one big one to keep in mind. Choosing advance payments might affect your SNAP benefits.
That's a major thing for families who rely on SNAP. So to avoid any issues with their benefits,
Right.
they might want to stick with getting the full credit at tax time.
Exactly. It's all about weighing your options and choosing what works best for your family. You know, looking at your financial situation and all.
Right, makes sense.
Yeah.
What if someone's situation changes after they've chosen the advance payments, though? Like, say their income goes up or they have another kid.
That's a great question. Since those advance payments, they're based on your current income and number of qualifying children, you might end up getting more than you're actually eligible for in the end.
So they could end up owing money back when they file.
It's possible.
Right.
Yeah, it could reduce your refund or even increase what you owe.
That's definitely something to think about. Are there any protections for people in those situations, though?
There is. It's called the minimum credit, and it can help you out. Protect you from having to repay those advance payments if your situation changes a little.
Okay, tell me more about this minimum credit safety net. How does it work?
To qualify, you need to still be eligible for at least some of the child tax credit. When you file your 2025 return, and the number of qualifying children you claim can have changed enough to drop the credit below what you got in advance.
So it's not a total free pass, but it gives you some peace of mind if things shift a bit.
Exactly. It's a helpful buffer for families, you know, when life throws those curveballs.
Let's say someone goes for the advance payments, but then they have second thoughts. Can they change their mind?
Absolutely. Starting in March 2025, You can manage everything online using e-services. You can update your address, switch to a paper check, or even stop the payments completely.
That's handy. But what if someone's not comfortable doing things online?
They can always reach out to the Department of Revenue directly, give them a call, or shoot them an email.
Okay, so there's flexibility there. But even if you stop the advance payments, you still got to file your 2025 return right.
You got it. And you'll have to wait until you file to choose those advance payments again for the next year.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What about amending your return after you've already filed? Does that mess with the advance payments at all?
It depends on what you're amending. If you change anything on that form, the one for the Minnesota child and working family credits, the advance payments will be stopped. But you can still claim the rest of the credit when you file your next return.
So amending that specific form kind of has a ripple effect.
It does, but if you're amending other parts of your return, it shouldn't affect your advance payments.
All right, so we've covered a ton of ground today.
We have. From rent to kids to refunds, it's been a whirlwind tour of Minnesota taxes.
It really has. So for our listeners out there, let's do a quick recap. Hit those key takeaways. First up, the renter's credit. Now you claim it directly on your income tax return.
Yep, no more separate forms or waiting for that separate refund check. But don't forget that certificate of rent paid from your landlord is key.
Right, that CRP is your golden ticket. And if you hit a snag, don't forget about the Rent Paid Affidavit, your backup option. Now, for families with kiddos, we dug into those advanced child tax credit payments.
Those payments can be a nice little boost throughout the year, but you got to consider the potential impact on SNFP benefits and the chance you might have to repay some of that money later.
Absolutely. Weighing those pros and cons is super important. And remember that minimum credit is there to help you out if your circumstances change a little.
Exactly. It's all about being informed and making the choices that work best for you.
Well said. And speaking of being informed, I want to remind our listeners that this deep dive is just for educational purposes. Taxes can be tricky, so it's always best to chat with a tax preparer or reach out to the Minnesota Department of Revenue for personalized advice.
Couldn't agree more. We hit the main points, but everyone's tax situation is unique.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought. Staying on top of those changes in the tax world can really empower you. You can maximize your benefits and make sure you're not leaving any money on the table. So dig into those resources we talked about and plan ahead for a smoother filing season.
Great advice. A little tax sense goes a long way.
Thanks for joining us.
It was my pleasure.
And to everyone listening, until next time, happy filing. So you've got your CRP or your RPA all set. But there's another big change this year that could put some cash in your pocket right now. We're talking about advance payments of the child tax credit. Now, I know in the past,